Jaya Jaya Shri Chaitanya, Jaya Nityananda, Jaya Advaita Chandra, Jaya Gaura Bhaktavinda. Jaya Jaya Shri Chaitanya, Jaya Nityananda, Jaya Advaita Chandra, Jaya Gaura Bhaktavinda. Jaya Jaya Shri Chaitanya, Jaya Nityananda, Jaya Advaita Chandra, Jaya Gaura Bhaktavinda. So we are continuing with Chaitanya Charitamrita, Adi Lila, chapter 2, starting with text number 93. आश्रय जानिते कही ए नव पदार्थ ए नवेर उत्पत्ति हेतु से आश्रयार्थ. Ashraya, the ultimate shelter. Janite, to know. Kahi, I discuss. A, these. Nava, 9. Pada artha, categories. A, these. Navera, of the 9. Utpati, of the origin. Hetu, cause. Say, that. Ashraya, of the shelter. Artha, the meaning. Translation by Srila Prabhupada. To know distinctly the ultimate shelter of everything that be, I have described the other 9 categories. The cause for the appearance of these 9 is rightly called their shelter. Text 94. Krishna eka sarvashraya, Krishna sarvadhama, Krishnera sharire sarva vishera vishrama. Translation. The personality of Godhead Sri Krishna is the shelter and abode of everything. All the universes rest in his body. Om Agyanatimirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Unmalitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. So, as we see in the previous verse, we read 93. He's talking about to know distinctly the ultimate shelter of everything that be. Distinctly, what does that mean? It means that there should be no doubt, no ambiguity. It's very, very clear, or you can say it's apparent, or decisively, or unmistakably. These are the different meanings of distinctly. So, to know distinctly, very clearly, the ultimate shelter of everything that be. I have described the other 9 categories. If you remember, we learned about the 10 categories, and the 10th one was the ultimate shelter of the Supreme Lord. The cause for these appearance of these 9 is rightly called their shelter. Now, in the next verse, says that Krishna is the shelter and abode of everything. We've heard this many times before. We've heard it in Bhagavad Gita, where Krishna says, Aham Sarvasya Prabhu, everything emanates from me. Brahma Samhita says, Sarva Karana Karanam, Krishna is the cause of all causes. So here it's in Chaitanya Charitamrita also we see that it's very clearly again mentioned that Sri Krishna is the shelter of everything. Everything means it includes everything, which means he's our shelter also. That's important, right? It's not, the consciousness should be, yes, Krishna is, the cause or shelter of everything except me. No, it is more importantly, he is our shelter also. And how, if he is our shelter, which means from his side, he is ready to give us shelter. But from our side, are we ready to take shelter? If yes, then what is the process to take shelter? And that is following the instructions of Guru, Sadhu, and Shastra. And Shastra means instructions of Krishna, right? So the spiritual master, he guides the disciple. Okay, this is the way. He shows the way. He gives advice. He gives instructions. And we will notice that whatever the spiritual master says is according to the scriptures. It's according to the acharyas. They have also said the same thing. So in other words, All are giving us direction. It is Guru, Sadhu, and Shastra. All three of them we get the guidance from. So, to really accept that guidance and to follow that guidance, we need to go deep and deep and deep into thinking about ourselves. What do we think about ourselves? Yes, the mind will immediately go to the good qualities in us. Oh, I sing so beautifully and I can do this and I am a very good cook and I read shastras and I chant nicely. So all those good side the mind is going to focus on. But no, to go deep in ourselves, we have to focus on our anarthas. First of all, think about those anarthas that we have, honestly accept them, and then work on them. And for just like if I am having a disease, the first step would be to recognize I am sick. I have a disease. Until and unless that acceptance is there, there will be no question of treatment. So once I accept, yes, I have these anarthas in me. You know what? Whenever I see someone else, doing better than me, I feel envious. Yes, that is one anartha. So we recognize those anarthas, we identify them, and then start working on removing them. And the spiritual master and the devotees around us can help us, can guide us to remove those anarthas. It is very easy for people in general, why just devotees, anybody, it's very easy for people to, most people can blurt out. It's called blurting out, just speaking what's in the mind. So that blurting out or making assumptions, or our nature is to have preconceived notions, oh, this, oh, that, without even trying to first catch our own selves, right? First to catch our own selves. So it's very, very important that we go deep within ourselves and identify those anarthas. Until and unless we identify, accept them, we will not be able to work towards them. So what should be our meditation? It's not that, okay, when we find our anarthas, we feel dejected, oh, and feel low and say, oh, how can I take shelter of the Supreme Lord? I have so many anarthas, what should I do? No, Prabhupada says, don't feel dejected, because in this material world, we are very conditioned since time immemorial. And this process given to us by Srila Prabhupada will help us, with the help of a spiritual master, with the help of guidance of devotees around us. We can start meditating on removing these anarthas, right? So introspection is very, very important. So here it says that the personality of Godhead Sri Krishna is the shelter and abode of everything. He is waiting for us. Srila Prabhupada says Krishna is waiting for us, just like a father whose children have left him and gone. The father is still waiting for the children to come back. That is how Krishna is waiting for us to come back. Let's go to next verse. दशमे दशमं लक्ष्यम् आश्रिताश्रयविग्रहं श्रीकृष्णाख्यं परं धाम जगद्धाम नमामि तत्. Translation and purport by Srila Prabhupada. The 10th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam reveals the 10th object, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is the shelter of all surrendered souls. He is known as Sri Krishna, and he is the ultimate source of all the universes. Let me offer my obeisances unto him. Purport. This quotation comes from Sridhar Swami's commentary on the first verse of the 10th canto, chapter 1 of Srimad Bhagavatam. So we see here again there is talk about shelter. He's the shelter of whom? Of all surrendered souls. Surrender means, Prabhupada says, just like Draupadi, she lifted her hands up and, totally was dependent on Krishna. She remembered and said, Govinda. The moment she let go, that is when Krishna came to help her. But as long as she was holding on, trying to save herself, Krishna didn't do anything. So that surrender is where we we surrender our false ego. We surrender our, whatever whatever is there in the heart, which is holding us back from bhakti, which is holding us back from completely surrendering. See, the problem we have in this material world is to be the controllers. We want to control. We not only want to control our body, which is not in our hands, we not only want to control our, relatives and friends in family or whoever it may be, or colleagues, but that also doesn't really work. We may think that I am the controller, I am controlling, that everyone, the idea would, best idea would be that everyone works the way I want them to work. That is called full control. But that is not possible. From Bhagavad Gita also we learn Krishna is the only controller. He is the only enjoyer. So here, surrendered souls means those who have surrendered their false ego also, who have surrendered everything, which means they are following the instructions of the Supreme Lord. They are following the process given by Srila Prabhupada. So 10th canto, it says, reveals Krishna, right? To the to those who are surrendered. So just by reading Srimad Bhagavatam, we cannot really help ourselves. We have to have the mercy of Guru and Krishna. Krishna decides when he wants to reveal himself to us. It is not in our hands at all. He will see our sincerity, he will see our seriousness in Krishna consciousness, he will see are we getting disturbed when we have obstacles on our path. So all this come into play. So we can only endeavor sincerely and then leave the result to Krishna. Now Krishna decides, does he want to accept us at his lotus feet? Does he want to reveal himself to us? We just need to follow the process with firm faith, right? Here also the reference, shows that Krishna is the supreme personality of Godhead. He is the ultimate source of everything, absolutely. There's nothing in this creation that is not under the direction of Krishna, that is not under the control of Lord Shri Krishna. Next verse. Krishnara Swarupa Ara Shakti Traya Jnana Yanrahaya Tandra Nahi Krishna Te Abhyana. Translation and purport by Srila Prabhupada. One who knows the real feature of Sri Krishna and his three different energies cannot remain ignorant about him. Purport. Srila Jiva Goswami states in his Bhagavad Sandarbha 16 that by his potencies, which act in natural sequences beyond the scope of the speculative human mind, the supreme transcendence, the Samam Bonam, eternally and simultaneously exists in four transcendental features: his personality, his impersonal effulgence, particles of his potency or the living beings, and the principal cause of all causes. The supreme whole is compared to the sun, which also exists in four features, namely the personality of the sun god, the glare of his glowing sphere, the sun rays inside the sun planet, and the sun's reflections in many other objects. The ambition to corroborate the existence of the transcendental absolute truth by limited conjectural endeavors cannot be fulfilled because he is beyond the scope of our limited speculative minds. In an honest search for truth, we must admit that his powers are inconceivable to our tiny brains. The exploration of space has demanded the work of the greatest scientists of the world, yet there are countless problems regarding even fundamental knowledge of the material creation that bewilders scientists who confront them. Such material knowledge is far removed from the spiritual nature, and therefore, the acts and arrangements of the absolute truth are, beyond all doubts, inconceivable. The primary potencies of the absolute truth are mentioned to be three: internal, external, and marginal. By the acts of his internal potency, the personality of Godhead in his original form exhibits the spiritual cosmic manifestations known as the Vaikuntha Lokas, which exist eternally even after the destruction of the material cosmic manifestation. By his marginal potency, the Lord expands himself as living beings who are part of him, just as the sun distributes its rays in all directions. By his external potency, the Lord manifests the material creation just as the sun with its rays creates fog. The material creation is but a perverse reflection of the eternal Vaikuntha nature. These three energies of the absolute truth are also described in the Vishnu Purana, where it is said that the living being is equal in quality to the internal potency, whereas the external potency is indirectly controlled by the chief cause of all causes. Maya, the illusory energy, misleads a living being as fog misleads a pedestrian by blocking off the light of the sun. Although the potency of Maya is inferior in quality to the marginal potency, which consists of the living beings who are part and parcel of the Lord, it nevertheless has the power to control the living beings. Just as fog can block the actions of a certain portion of the sun's rays, although it cannot cover the sun. The living beings covered by the illusory energy evolve in different species of life, with bodies ranging from that of an insignificant ant to that of Brahma, the constructor of the cosmos. The Pradhana, the chief cause of all causes, is the impersonal vision, is none other than the Supreme Lord, whom one can see face to face in the internal potency. He takes the material, all pervasive form by his inconceivable power. Although all three potencies, namely internal, external, and marginal, are essentially one in the ultimate issue, they are different in action, like electric energy, which can produce both cold and heat under different conditions. The external and marginal potencies are so called under various conditions, but in the original internal potencies, there are no such conditions, nor is it possible for the conditions of the external potency to exist in the marginal or vice versa. One who is able to understand the intricacies of these energies of the Supreme Lord can no longer remain an empiric impersonalist under the influence of a poor fund of knowledge. What a beautiful verse, what a beautiful purport, such nice description. So, one who knows, he's saying, one who knows. So, we cannot know just by reading, it is not possible, even though the purport is there by Srila Prabhupada. Why did Srila Prabhupada take so much trouble to give such lengthy purpose? Because just by reading the translation itself, it's not possible to really understand. So we are very, very fortunate that we have mercy of Srila Prabhupada who gave us these nice purports. So with the mercy of Guru and Krishna, we will be able to understand. Here it is clearly said that his potencies, they act beyond speculative mind. Our mind is very expert in speculation. It's always speculating, oh, maybe this, oh, maybe that. We are speculating on actions of others, words of others. It could be, behavior. It could be anything. We are just speculating all the time. But here, it is said that Krishna's potencies, they are beyond the speculative mind. We cannot understand with speculation. So what are the four features Srila Prabhupada is talking in his purport? He is talking about personality, impersonal effulgence, the living beings, and the principal cause of all causes. And he nicely, Srila Prabhupada compares this to the sun, yeah, who also exists in four features: the sun god, the glare of his glowing sphere, the sun rays, and the reflection in many other objects. So, very clearly, Srila Prabhupada is telling us in this purport that Krishna is beyond the scope of limited speculative mind. Two words: limited. Our knowledge is limited. Our even if we speculate, it's gonna be very limited. So it's talking about limited speculative minds. So we have to accept that Krishna is an inconceivable, and we can only conceive him by his mercy. So Prabhupada says that anything that is beyond our conception, anything that we are unable to understand, then we must approach authority. We must hear from authority. We must try and understand with the help of the guidance from Guru, from the acharyas, from the shastras. Because our brains, they are very tiny, right? And in Bhagavad Gita, Arjuna says that the mind is restless, right? Mind is restless, and it is all the time, right? It's so difficult to control the mind. Arjuna says, easy to control the wind, but not the mind. Mind is going in all different directions. When we sit down to chant, what happens? As soon as you say Hare, mind is gone. And then when 16 rounds are over, mind is back. Back to what? Chanting is finished. Chanting is over. What happened? We didn't even realize we finished our 16 rounds. So our brains are tiny, our minds are restless, our senses are uncontrolled. Most of us are still on the bodily concept of life, only thinking about the body or getting affected by the body, affected by the mind. And we are so busy in this whole rigmarole that we forget to stop and think about it. Oh, am I thinking about my body only? Am I still thinking about my soul or not? Right? That we need to stop and we need to think about it, right? We need to somehow the other, understand the purpose of this creation, understand the purpose of our being here in this material world. We all have heard many times Srila Prabhupada say that we belong to the spiritual world. We have fallen down from the spiritual world and we need to go back to the spiritual world, our original home. We have heard that many times, but have we sat down and thought about it? Have we really thought that, oh, yes, this material world is actually a place of suffering? Yes, there is bodily suffering, mental suffering, this suffering, that suffering, suffering caused by others, suffering caused by material nature. There's so much going on. Let me stop, take a deep breath, and think, oh, I need to think on the soul level. I need to think how I can come out of this cycle of birth and death. Right? It's very important to understand the that of course we have heard many times Krishna is the supreme personality of Godhead. He is the cause of all causes. He's the one who creates, he's the one who maintains, he's the one who annihilates. We've heard that many times. But have we just sat down and thought about one simple thing? When we look at the tree, do we appreciate that tree? How Krishna put that huge tree inside a small seed. This tree has grown from that small seed, right? We human beings also grow from a small seed, right? Have we thought about how the flowers get their beautiful color, the fragrance? How? Just from a seed? Have you thought about the butterflies, that how are they so beautiful? Have you thought about how the planets are moving in the correct motion and speed and direction, everything happening perfectly. Have you thought about the sun rising at the right time at the right place and setting at the right time? Have you thought about that? No. Need to think, who is it who is doing all this? This whole beautiful creation is being controlled by Krishna himself, and he is the cause of all causes. That is what we've heard in last these 3 4 verses that we read today, 93 onwards till 96. He is the cause. Now, in the purport, Srila Prabhupada says that we've heard about Krishna's potencies, internal, external, marginal. We've heard about it. And with internal, Srila Prabhupada says, Vaikunthas exist eternally. So even when this material creation is annihilated, the Vaikunthas still remain. They are never annihilated. They do not get destroyed, just like the material world. And with marginal, he expands as living beings who are his part and parcels, right? Mamai Vamsha Jiva Loki, Jiva Bhuta Sanatana. That we are all small parts of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna. Right? We are his eternal parts, and with external potency he manifests as material creation. So just like we take a drop of ocean, chemically both are same, ocean and that drop, but we cannot say that we are holding the ocean in our hand. In one sense yes, in other sense no. Qualitatively yes, quantitatively no. So we need to understand that we are also parts of Krishna qualitatively, but not quantitatively. And Srila Prabhupada gives a very nice example of Maya compared to fog, right? So when there is fog, then the sun's rays, they get a little bit covered and it becomes difficult to follow the path, right? So fog can mislead the traveler. So also Maya can also mislead. So Maya can control all living beings. But if we are strong in our Krishna consciousness, when Maya sees our determination, our firm faith towards Krishna, towards the Guru Parampara, then Maya puts more obstacles just to make sure that we are qualified to go back to the spiritual world, right? But those who are in Maya, those who are, you know, living in Maya, then they take birth in different species of life. This is what Srila Prabhupada is explaining. He also says that Krishna is the cause of all causes, and we can see him face to face only in internal potency. That's the only way. Yeah. All three potencies, internal, external, marginal, they all belong to Krishna. They are all one, but they have different actions. And a nice example Prabhupada gives is that of electric energy, right? That same electrical energy can be used to heat or to cool. It's the same energy. So similarly, Krishna's potencies, they all are the same. They all belong to him. They are all one, but they have different actions. So external and marginal, they are under various conditions. But internal potency, there are no conditions at all, no conditions. So conditions of marginal, they cannot exist in external. Similarly, conditions of external cannot exist in marginal. See, this is how Prabhupada is explaining. So I know it's not very easy to understand. It's even Prabhupada says in the purport, he says very clearly it is not easy to understand these intricacies. The very last line, if you see, one who is able to understand the intricacies of these energies can no longer remain an empiric impersonalist under the influence of a poor fund of knowledge. See, it's not easy to understand his potencies, but it is possible if Krishna's mercy is there, Guru's mercy is there, then we will be able to understand these different potencies also. Right now, all that we read today is just knowledge, you know, it's just knowledge. But how will it change to realization, that is a process. So Prabhupada always says that when we hear or read something, then we should discuss it with three other devotees. When we do that, then there is an exchange of Krishna Katha. When that exchange happens, then we start to really understand what these scriptures are actually saying. So there is so much knowledge to grasp. Of course, no one can say, I know it all. That's not possible. That's why sometimes you will see that when you ask me a question, sometimes I'll say, I don't know. It's not possible to know everything, right? The knowledge is unlimited. So much knowledge is there in Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam, Chaitanya Charitamrita, Nectar of Devotion, Nectar of Instruction, so many small books of Srila Prabhupada. There's so much knowledge. Even if we spend our whole lifetime reading every day, still we will not be able to really grasp everything. Reading is one thing and grasping is another thing, right? But Srila Prabhupada has made it so simple and easy for us. All he says is chant and be happy. Now, if somehow or the other we can start chanting attentively, I remember hearing this once, that when we sit down to chant and we chant the mantra and we realize, oh, I wasn't paying attention to the sound vibration, then go back one bead, you know, and then try to chant. When we chant, and then after two or three mantras, we realize, oh, I wasn't paying attention, go back. So that way, the mind will start becoming more attentive. It's like, oh, if I am going to take, run away here or there, then it's going to take much longer to finish the round, right? Much longer. So it is better that I focus now. It's like children, right? Um, we tell children, okay, here, do your home. No, say very famous is handwriting, right? I want you to write one whole page with very nice handwriting. And if you make a mistake, in other words, I remember I used to do that with my grandson when he was young. It's like, okay, now write the alphabets, in caps, and now in small letters, and now in cursive handwriting. Okay, and the instruction was very clear. If there is a mistake, you'll have to go back and do it all over again. Like, what? Have I've already written three-quarter of the page. You expect me to start from the beginning? Yes. So then it was, oh, I better be careful. If I am not careful in writing it very clearly and neatly, I will have to spend more time in writing one more page. So this is how the mind is trained, that, okay, if there is no attention while chanting, then go back. If we, after finishing one round, we realize that, oh, I wasn't really paying attention, don't count that round. Start all over again. This is how we train the mind. So Srila Prabhupada has made it very simple and easy, that chant the rounds, follow the regulative principles, read his books regularly, associate with devotees, and do with service. Do some service, some kind of service, right? And then everything will fall in place. The nice example, if you remember, I've given about a glass jar. The jar is there, and we need to somehow or the other fit everything in the jar. There's a big rock, there are small stones, pebbles, and sand. How do we fit everything in? If we put the big rock inside first, then everything else will find its way. The pebbles and the sand, everything will find its way, and we will be able to fit everything in the jar. Similarly, that big rock is Krishna. When we have Krishna in the center of our lives, then everything else will fall in its place, like the pebbles and stones, like family, work, friends, devotees, whatever it may be, everything will fall in place. But the main thing is that big rock, which is Krishna himself, that should be the center of our lives. That is why it's a very good practice that as a family, we chant together. In the evenings, we sit and we read together, right? We do some kirtan together, arti together. Then that way, what happens? The whole family remains Krishna conscious. So just imagine, Srila Prabhupada has given us such a simple and easy method to become fully Krishna conscious, become qualified to go back to the spiritual world. So, this is what is today's verse. So, if anyone has any questions,